Hello fiber friends, and today we will be learning the Tunisian Crochet Twisted Knit Stitch. It is a play a little bit on the Tunisian knit stitch, and we will go ahead and get started. Much like any other fiber art, we will be starting with a slip knot where you will take your yarn, twist it over itself to make this little X, hold on to that X to hold this loop on the side that you've just made. Take your index and thumb finger through the back of that loop to then pinch the working yarn, which will be connected to your big ball of yarn, and pull it through. And that right there is your slip knot. Today I am using a 10mm Tunisian crochet hook, which is longer than a regular hook. And it's just so that these stitches are easy to see. You insert your hook into that slip knot you just made and pull on the working yarn to tighten that up. Now this stitch, you can use any number of stitches, so however long or short that you want it, you can go right ahead and do that. It doesn't matter whatever, any kind of multiples or any kind of number like that. Just as long as you want it is as long as it can go. Today I will be doing 10, we'll be working 10 stitches, and so I will be working 10 chains to start that off. Now to start with that chain, you will take your hook, and with the crook of your hook, you will pull your working yarn through that loop that you had with your slip knot, and that will be counted as your first chain. Then you will continue to do that with the crook of your hook. You will pull your working yarn through that loop, and that is your second chain. And we will continue that until I get to 10 stitches. Alright, so we have our 10 chains. Now what we are going to do is we are going to flip this over to show these little bumps on the back. Now I like to work with the tip of my hook right here into these bumps instead of trying to push this part into the back bumps, because it makes it so much easier to do that. So what we are going to do is, see this bump right here? That's right next to, like, the immediate first one. We're going to skip that one and go on to our next bump, the second one that's right next to it right here. You will put your hook, slide it on through that bump, take your working yarn and grab it with your crook of your hook and pull it through. Again, you go to the next bump that's right here. Insert your hook into that bump, grab onto the working yarn with the crook of your hook and pull it through. And we're going to do that all the way down to our last little bump here. Okay, so right here is when you should count your loops. Because I had wanted to work 10 stitches, there should be 10 loops on my hook. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I only have 9. Now, this means that I missed a bump. So we are going to find out which bump is the one that I missed. It tends to happen, but right now, if this happens to you where you have less or more, definitely try to fix that early on in the game. It's easier to get it fixed up right here early versus later down the line when you're already worked like 5 to 10 rows and you just don't want to completely frog all of it. It doesn't seem like I've been missing. I probably missed the ones in the beginning. Oh, yep, I missed the very first one. So this is common. This bump right here. There we go. So I had pointed this one out as the first bump. This was actually the second bump because this one is the first bump. Now the reason we are skipping it, as you can see, is that when you tighten it, it almost gets lost in here. And that is why we tend to skip it. I know for my first few ones, I said to work into that bump, but I have since learned from that. So I'm moving forward with rectifying it. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm just too lazy to go back and fix it. Laziness at its finest. Now we can do a little recount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Would this stitch have worked with 9 stitches? Yes, it would have, completely, because it doesn't matter if it's an even or an odd number. However, I personally just wanted to work 10 stitches, and it is good to see that, you know, mistakes happen. It's okay when they happen. If you can catch them as early as possible and keep track of them as much as you can, that is usually the best option, but it's not the end of the world. There's mistakes in every single pattern that has been made. Unless it is made by a machine, anything handmade will have 1 or 2 little mishaps. We're human. We tend to do that. Moving on from my little imperfection rant, now that we have our 10 stitches, we are going to take our working yarn, grab it into the crook of our hook, and pull it through 1 loop, just like so. Then we are going to grab that working yarn again and pull it through 2 loops. And we're going to pull it through 2 loops all the way down to the end of the row when you only have 1 loop left on your hook. Okay. And now we have our foundation row done. Most Tunisian crochet will start like this. Now, today is going to be the twisted knit stitch, the Tunisian crochet twisted knit stitch. Boy, is it a bit of a tongue twister. Now this stitch can get a little confusing sometimes, but truly once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty simple. Now, when we start our stitches, this first loop right here counts as our first stitch. This one right here. It counts as our first stitch, and because this already counts as a stitch, we will skip this first one because we don't want to add, we don't want to increase, we don't want to add any extra stitches. So we are going to skip this one. Now in this next loop here that we see, it is a variation of the Tunisian knit stitch, which you will put your hook right in there and pull. But we are not doing that today. What we are going to do is this right here, the bar that is the closest to you, you are going to pull that to the other side. Now, for me, I am right-handed, and so it is on my left-hand side. Because of that, it's going to be pushed over to my right so that this is how it looks now. For those of you who are left-handed, I will show that again and say it differently. For the left-handed crafters, it will be on your right, the one that's closest to you. It would be on your right, it would be facing your right hand, and you will push that all over to your left. basically you're going to be switching the sides so that the one that's closest to you is the opposite. Now once you have that, then you take your hook and you push it through that modified loop that you just did. Yarn over your hook, and with the crook of your hook, pull it through right there. And you can already see how different this one looks to this one. You can already see that difference. And this is why it's called the twisted knit. Now I'm going to show that again a little bit easier with your hook and not my fingers, where you take this right here, the bar that's closest to you, take it with the crook of your hook and pull it to the other side, to the opposite side. And then that little bar is exposed in the back, and you will push your hook right through it. I hope you guys can see this well. Grab your working yarn with the crook of your hook and pull it through. However is easy for you, whether you have to do it with your fingers first or if actually grabbing it with your hook is easier. You can try both ways, whichever one is easier. In either case scenario, this is how it should look. You can see the difference between this loop right here and this here. Now I'm going to repeat this for the entire row. Alright, now we are at our last stitch, which always looks a little funky. The last and the first stitch will always be worked differently, usually in Tunisian crochet patterns, unless you're trying to make some sort of special thing. But if you're not, and you're just making a big old block, you will see this on the side, this loop right here, with an extra little bar that comes out on the outermost side. The two that are on the outside are going to stay on the outside, and that loop that was created, the one that's on the inside, will stay on the inside, and that's where you're going to be inserting through. You're going to insert your hook through that so that the two bars are on the outside. Yarn over and pull your working yarn with the crook of your hook through that loop. So once you do that, you will now pull your working yarn through one loop like that, and then grab again with the crook of your hook and pull through two loops, and continue to pull through two loops at a time until you only have one loop left on your hook. Okay, and this is how it is going to look so far. Now we are going to repeat exactly what we did for this first row on this row. Now again, this first loop on your hook already counts as your first stitch, so we are going to skip this loop on the outside corner and go immediately to our next loop. So the bar that's facing you, you find that loop, you're going to pull that bar to the other side of your loop and make sure the back bar is now in the position where the front bar used to be. Push it through, yarn over and pull your hook through that loop. Now I'm going to show that again, this time with my fingers so that my hook is not really in the way. This is our next loop. You see how the bar that is closest to you and this bar, those two, they're going to switch sides. So you will pull that over the bar that's behind, that's the furthest from you, and you want it to be a loop just like this. And you will push your hook through that middle, yarn over, and pull through. And I'm going to continue that all the way down. All right, so now we are on our last stitch right here, and just like before, you're going to see that loop on the edge right here coming off of the bottom there, and you're going to see another bar also coming down to have two bars on the outside, and that loop, one bar going into the inner part of your work. You're going to insert your hook into that loop, making sure that you have two bars on the outermost side of your work, yarn over, and pull through. Currently, this is how it looks. Currently, this is how it looks. You can see how each loop twists around itself. And again, you'll be pulling through that one and pulling through two all the way down, just like the other rows. That will be the same throughout your work. Now I'm going to work a few more rows off screen and show you how the stitch looks on a larger piece. So this is the Tunisian Crochet Twisted Knit Stitch. It is very dense. It is not very flowy. It doesn't drape very well. So it's best for like home goods, pillows, certain sturdy accessories. You might be able to make a bag out of this because it's really sturdy. It doesn't have much kind of give to it. It is prone to curling, as you can see. You can see it's curling up on its own. This is me pulling it down. So it does require to be blocked. It's not curling as much, mainly because I am using a larger hook, a 10mm crochet hook, a Tunisian crochet hook. So it's not curling as much as it wants to. So just keep that in mind whenever you are working this stitch. But it is gorgeous. It is a type of puffy that if you are using the correct yarn or a good yarn, like a nice soft yarn, it will be very plush. So definitely like pillows would be really good for this stitch right here. It is very gorgeous. You can see the little twists going on right there. Almost looks like cables, honestly, but like little mini cables. But yeah, I hope you find this tutorial helpful. And yeah, happy crafting. Ba-da-da-da.